Hello and welcome back. All right, so we're going to continue working with our layer mask to do some custom edits with our images with layer adjustments. So we're going to go ahead and continue with this image that we used in the last lesson, and we're going to use our gradient tool to adjust the edits being applied to the image. And then we're also going to look at a real world example whereby we're going to increase the amount of purple in the water and better define the clouds to better reflect what we see in the sky, because right now we have a little bit of purple being reflected off the water, but maybe we want to add some more of that purple in there. Well, there's an easy way to do that, and we can use layer adjustments and layer masks in order to define exactly where to apply that edit. Okay, so let's go ahead and go back to this image. We're going to grab our gradient tool, which is located right here. And when I hover over this icon, it says gradient tool, and the keyboard shortcut for that is the letter G. But if you're not seeing that, that's because you have a different tool selected. And by default, the paint bucket tool is the one that is selected, which is also accessed via the keyboard shortcut of the letter G. So to get the gradient tool, just click in this little area right here. You're going to see this little arrow right here. And that lets you know that there's additional tools inside there. So click on it and select the gradient tool. The next thing we need to do is we need to adjust the options that we have available up here. One thing you want to make sure is you have your opacity set to the setting that you want it. We're going to do 100% for now. And again, just like with our brush, if I press the number 5 key, I'm going to change the opacity of that tool versus the layer. So again, depending on the tool you have selected, if that tool has an opacity option within the options section up here, then that's going to adjust the opacity based on the number that you select. So 0 resets back to 100%. Next thing we need to decide on is the type of gradient we want. We have linear, radial, and some other ones as well. We're going to stick with linear for now, which is the first one. And then you want to make sure you have the correct setup for your gradient. Remember, black removes, white adds. So it's going to remove the edit gradually from one side to the other based on the gradient that we add to the layer mask. So you want to make sure that you have the correct gradient selected. So just click in this area to get the gradient editor, and then make sure you click on the icon that is black to white. Once you have that, go ahead and click OK. Then you want to make sure you have your layer mask selected. Click and drag out a line, and then the gradient will be placed along that line, and you can make it as large or as small as you want, depending on how much of that gradient you want to apply. Once you release, you're going to see on your layer mask black to white being applied with the gradient. If you didn't get it exactly where you wanted it, you can just click, drag, and reapply it, and it will re-edit based on that new gradient. So I'm going to go back in time here with my history panel and select the last option prior to gradient so I can get my mushroom back. Because what if we want to keep this particular edit of our mushroom in color, but we also want to apply a gradient in this area over here? Because once we add it, it's removing the other edit that we made. So to fix that, what we're going to do is go back up to our gradient editor. Then we're going to change this from black to transparent. So to do that, we're going to click on this little black icon right here. We're going to change opacity to 0%. Okay, so once you have that set to 0 for the opacity, you have a gradient from black to transparent, and that's going to allow us to keep this edit as well as apply other edits. You can also change the thickness of the gradient by moving this icon to the right, and you're going to see gray being filled in this area, and it's just going to give you a different effect with your gradient based on the size of black to transparent. Okay, so once you have that selected, go ahead and click New so you can add that gradient in the editor, and you can save that for future use. Otherwise, if you click OK, it's going to overwrite the original black to white. You don't want to do that because you're going to want to use that again in the future. Go ahead and click OK. Then click and drag out again, and now we apply that gradient in the top left corner, and we can keep the edit that we did on our mushroom over here. So we can continue adding additional edits on our image based on that new gradient. Okay, let's take a look at how we could use this on an actual image with just the gradient. What we're going to do is select this image if you want to follow along. This is just for demonstration purposes. You can always practice this with your own images or with this particular image that came with the course. So we're going to go up to Layer, New Adjustment Layer, and we're going to select Hue, Saturation for our adjustment layer. Just click OK for the name. Then what we want to do is we want to change the color of our blues to be more purple. So we're going to go in and select the blue channel. Then adjust your hue slider to add more purple. And as you can see, we have a lot more purple in here. If that's too intense, then just back off just a little bit. But what it's doing is it's applying this edit to the entire image. And that's because, that's right, white adds. Right now our layer mask is completely white, so it's applying that edit to the entire image. So what we need to do is we need to paint on black in areas where we don't want that edit, which is basically from the horizon up. And to do that, we're going to use our black to white gradient. So go ahead and select that. Then we're going to click on a horizon, drag down, and if I hold down my shift key, it's going to lock it into place. This will make the gradient perfectly straight in line with our horizon. Otherwise, it's going to do it at an angle. I don't want to do it at an angle, so I'm going to hold down my shift key and drag all the way to the bottom of the image. Once I let go, we can see in our layer mask that we have a gradient applied from black to white, and now it's just being applied in this area of the image. So now you can see more of the clouds. It's much more defined, and we've added some color in there to better reflect the colors in the sky. How cool is that? I love it. All right, so that is how you use your gradient tools with layer adjustments and layer masks. Now you may be wondering, what about these other options? Well, if we come back over here to this image, again, I'm going to go back and I'm going to reset this back just before the first gradient. And let's say we want to just highlight this particular mushroom right here. Well, if we select our radial filter or our radial gradient from black to white, I can click and drag out, and it will apply that gradient in a radial format versus linear. And then you have some other options you can play with here as well. You can also apply blending modes to your gradients as well. We haven't covered blending modes yet, but we will in an upcoming section. So we'll cover blending modes in a future lesson. Okay, so that's it for layer masks. In the next lesson, we're going to explore another way to work with your Photoshop adjustment layers.